Hello everybody and welcome back to Crumb Bum Deluxe. It's your boy Crumb. Today I'm talking about Obsession. These are my thoughts and feelings. Overall, I really loved Obsession, I think as much as probably everybody else did. It was quite good in the fact that it was genuinely scary, had legitimately creepy and creative ideas through and through. The execution was really well done. It looked good. The actress who played Nikki, let's go ahead and get her name, Indy Navarrete. The actress Indy Navarrete, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. She's incredible. She really stole the show with this entire movie, carried it, and was a big part of why it was so scary. At first, I didn't want to like it so much. I felt like, the kids were pretty much all of them were really annoying, but I think that happens generally because for me anyway, it's because they're no-name actors and these faces are new, so immediately before we're in the depths of the story, we're kind of having to wrap our heads around following these faces we don't recognize for the course of the whole film. But at first I found them all a little annoying, but I think also with horror films you want a little bit of that, so you really enjoy when the deaths come around and the monster gets them, the killer gets them, whatever. I thought that, by keeping the situation simple, being based off of The Wish and kind of just having fun with this really simple setup and putting, a lot of genuine realism into the characters and into the premise and everything. So a lot of the dialogue and everything felt more or less natural. Every now and again it felt a little forced, but it is a 26-year-old director who, maybe it doesn't sound realistic to me, somebody who's in their early 40s. To him, I'm sure it sounds perfectly realistic. And I loved how the twists and turns throughout were really impactful and just really well done. I think between, having a few jump scares here and there are also some just really great visual things, especially with Nikki and her struggling between emotional states while being trapped in this version of herself that is obsessed. Things I didn't really like, I'll be honest. There wasn't much. I think it was really great overall, but the main character really bothered me, I think, a little more so than maybe he should have. I get that he's meant to be kind of a wimpy character or whatever, but just the way he was written to me was pretty frustrating. I felt like, okay, yeah, I get that he's shy and nervous or whatever, but she gave him, we'll do a little spoilers here, but she gave him, the moment to come clean. And I think, I get it. You don't have a movie if he did come clean, but it just, to me, throughout, I just didn't really like the main character at all. I felt like by the end of it, I feel like Nikki's really the hero of this story. She'll be in prison not knowing what's gone on, but to me, she's the one I emotionally connected myself to most, and I could not wait for Bear to die. I couldn't wait for him to get his comeuppance, because as far as I'm concerned, he got everything he deserved in this movie because he was so frustratingly cowardly. I don't know if you could have handled that better to my own tastes, but who cares? But that's just how I felt about the character. So, but generally with horror movies, I'm rooting for the monster. I'll be honest. I always feel, I relate a lot more to them maybe. That's a scary thing to say, but anyway, it was an excellent film, for a first time director so young to be, so confident in his execution was really just a blast at the movies. And I know it's a really good scary film when I'm like smiling ear to ear when those scares are executed with such, and I honestly didn't realize that the film was in a 4:3 aspect ratio until about halfway through, which I thought was pretty amazing. And I couldn't help think to myself that Curry Barker knows his stuff. You know, he's a fan of the genre without having any direct references to any property or franchise or anything like that. You could tell some of the inspirations with his gore moments, his scares, even some of the music. You know, you can tell there's the DNA of all the greats are running through. You know, I'd say probably any young horror director or young director. So it really feels like it was kind of a knock out of the park, and I'm looking forward to what he does next. Other than that, no real gripes at all in any regard. I think at times some parts felt a little too self-aware, maybe like in the magic shop and stuff like that, where it's just kind of these moments of cynicism towards the society that Curry Barker is kind of manufactured for the background of this tale. But you know, it is common in horror for that kind of thing, and it's really not a gripe at all. But yeah, as far as I am concerned, let's see, what would we give that? I think I used to do a 10, you know, number out of 10 kind of review count, but I think I'm going to switch to the 5. I think it's a little more succinct, and so for Obsession, I think it's probably objectively the scariest horror film out right now as far as I've seen. And I would go ahead and give it about 3.5 stars, I think. And I think that's solid. That's like great, you know. 4 for me is like, it's a great movie, but it's not like blew my mind absolute favorite. But I think 3.5 Obsession, that's what we're gonna roll with. So that's what I have to say on Obsession. I hope I didn't really miss anything. I don't know, but I'm just going off the cuff, really. Hope you enjoyed it. Tune back in. I got Backrooms up next. All right.